Hi, my beautiful brothers and sisters. This is Mary Hernandez with Genesis Kingdom, Part 1. So today's topic, I picked downfall of our enemies, Revelation. So I was in Nahum, which is after, oh my goodness, thought I had it open. Sorry about that. Waiting for it to open on my little Bible thing. It's Micah, right after Micah, right before Micah. And then before that was Jonah. So I was reading Nahum 1. It gave me revelation. And I was able to piece it together. The Holy Spirit. I always give credit to the Holy Spirit, the Creator, which is our Mother God. So now, with that being said, I'm going to start off reading to you Nahum, the burden of Nineveh, the book of vision of Nahum, the Elkoshite. God is jealous, and the Lord revenges. The Lord revenges, and it is furious, Lord. Will take vengeance in our adversaries and reverses the wrath from his enemies. The Lord is slow to anger, great in power, and I will not at all acquit the wicked. The Lord had his way with the whirlwind and in the storm, and with the clouds that they are the dust of his feet. He rebuked the sea and make it dry. He dried up all the rivers of Bashan and and Carmel of the flower of Lebanon languageth. The mountains quake at him, and his hills melt. The earth is burdened in his presence, the world and all that dwelleth therein. Who can stand before his indignation? And who can abide the fierceness of his anger? His fury is poured out like a fire, like the rocks that are thrown down by him. The Lord is good, a stronghold, the day of trouble, and he knoweth them, and he trusted in him. But with who overrunning flood, that he will make an utter end in the place thereof. The darkness shall pursue his enemies. What do you imagine against the Lord? That he will make an utter and affliction, that they shall not rise up the second time. For a while they be folded together as thorns, but while they're drunken as drunkards, they shall devour and stumble fully dry. Now it says, there is no one out of thee that imagined the evil against the Lord, and as against the wicked counselor. Though says the Lord, though they be quiet, and likewise many, and yet those shall they be cut down, and that he shall pass through. But though I have afflicted thee, I would afflict thee no more. For now I will break the yoke from thee, and I will burst out the bonds in sunder. And the Lord had given commandments concerning thee. No more in thy name be sown out of the house of thy gods. I will cut off the graven image and the molten image, and I will make thy grave, for thou art vile. Behold upon the mountains and the feet of him that bringeth good things, good tidings, and publisheth peace. O Judah, keep thy solemn feast, perform thy vows for the wicked, they shall no more pass through thee, and he is utterly cut off. So the day's coming that no more wicked should come. It's like the Egyptians, they say the Egyptians we see now, we will no longer see. So as I went into Nahum 1, I wanted to be able to explain a little bit about what the message is. And it is what I had picked for the title, which is the downfall of our enemies, right? There's consequences for our sin, and not just for us, but for all his children as well as this world. And sometimes we have to own it, take responsibility for the decisions we make. We can't blame anybody but ourselves. But humbling yourself, bringing that to the altar and saying, hey, I surrender to you, the creator of heaven and earth, and ask for forgiveness, because there is no other God besides the creator of heaven and earth, our mother God. Now, with that being said, I did the research of what Nahum meant. And it means the comforter. That's what it stands for, comforter, right? So then it brought me to do research about Nineveh, the meaning of Nineveh. Nineveh was known as a larger city of a pagan city that symbolized enmity with God. We find that is in Jonah 3:1-10. So able to back it up with the Bible verse. Be patient with me. Jonah 3, and it pointed out Bible verse 1 through 10. So I'm going to read that to you. And the word of the Lord came unto Jonah a second time, saying, Arise and go unto Nineveh, the great city, and preach unto it, and preaching that I bid thee. So Jonah arose, went unto Nineveh according to the word of the Lord. Now Nineveh was exceedingly a great city of 3 days' journey. And Jonah began to enter into the city, the day's journey. And he cried and he said, Your 40 days, Nineveh, shall be overthrown. Did you get that? What did it say? He went into a dark place, a pagan world, for 3 days. And Jonah began to enter the city, the day's journey, and he cried out and said, Yet 40 days, Nineveh shall be overthrown. Right? So the people of Nineveh believed God and proclaim a fast, but unto the sackcloth for the greatness of even. And at least of them, the word came into the king of Nineveh, and he arose on the throne, and he laid the robe before him, and he covered him with sackcloth and with his ashes. And he came out unto to proclaim, published through Nineveh, the decree of the king and his nobles, saying, Let neither man nor beast, herd nor flock, taste anything, and let them not feed nor drink, but let a man of the beast be covered with sackcloth. Cry mighty unto God. And it says, let them turn everyone from his evil way, from the violence that is in their hands. Who can tell if God had turned and repented? Who turned away from the furious angry? It says that we perish. And God saw their works, and they turned from evil way, and God repented evil that he had said unto he that he would do unto them, and he did not. So remember how Jonah, the story was that Jonah got mad and said, I knew you were going to have mercy on them. I knew you were going to do that. But God said, hey, that's what I chose you to do. This is the whole high calling when you get called to go in there. So you're going into a strange land. You're going into something that's in the darkness. But that's the whole point, is to do a revival of our Creator, because they were serving pagan world, but this is to save them, to heal that land. So because God had mercy on it, Jonah got mad, right? We know that story. So Nahum is actually the offset, because they ended up turning back again into doing evil. So then the land ended up perishing when it came down. And why were there our enemies? I have that in there for you too. Now, it also brought me to Matthew 12:41. So Matthew 12:41. Matthew 12:41. The men of Nineveh shall rise in judgment with the generation, and they shall condemn it, because they repented at the preaching of Jonas, and behold, greater than Jonah is here. The queen of the south shall rise up the judgment in this generation, and they shall condemn it. For she that came from the uttermost part from the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon, behold, a greater than Solomon is here. When the unclean spirits had gone out of that man, he walked through the dry place to seek and rest, and findeth none. And then it goes on more. But I wanted to point that out to you. It actually said 41, so I apologize. 1241. Which is that the men of Nineveh shall rise in judgment, and this generation shall condemn it, because they repented at the preaching of Jonah. But behold, a greater one than Jonah is here. Right? So I did a little bit of search of Nineveh, what it meant, to get further history on it. And it gave me a little bit of history of the ancestors. But you know how a lot of, you'll see people, maybe they don't have the wisdom and discernment. I knew a little bit, but not too much. But as I continue reading it, I get a revelation. So I did Nineveh, the meaning of Nineveh, right? So Nineveh was the capital of the most powerful ancient Assyrian empire, located in modern day of northern Iraq, the river of Tigris. And if you remember Paul's letter when he was writing to the churches, and he said, yo, Tigris, and I showed you, I posted it in the descriptions, the map of Turkey, pretty much. You see them all, the Europeans, Turkey, all of it that it had out there. So you could kind of look and get the ideas where it shows you all the churches were, which the churches were the 7 churches that evil had dominion over. The 7th churches that they had. They were empires of darkness, right? So that's why he sent him in there. But it was really God's way of just telling the world, come back to me, And so I did a little bit of research of what it meant on Nineveh. And it was a goddess. Goddess are not from God. Remember how a lot of people say, come on, you're a goddess, it's a chosen vessel. No, goddesses are from the ones from the pagan world, from the darkness. We're prophets, prophetess, we're child of the Most High God. We're in the image of God, not of darkness. Celestial beings, earth angels, heavenly angels, And I don't know if you're really able to see, but Asha star. That is who it shows for her. And it shows other. They're ungodly goddesses of hell, of a pagan world. And that's what it is. So it was a male-facet goddess. Ashtar takes 3 paramounts of forms. She is the goddesses of love, sexual, and those also fertility. The mother of goddesses. So this is what the people have. Sometimes they say, oh, Mother God, mother of, no. That's pretty much the goddess from darkness. People that have idolized themselves and make themselves God, So when I did the research, it showed me Ishtar, if I'm saying that right. The goddesses of Ishtar is Nineveh. They also goes by Nina. Was also the Sumerian, the Assyrian, the names of that goddesses. So then I said, well, where does she, where's her ancestors? Where do they come from, right? Asahar. They're descendants of Asahar. Descendants that was the 2nd son of Shem, the son of Noah. Asahar brothers was Elm, Apravex, if I'm saying it right, Lud, Aram. Who's Aram? Who was changed later to Abraham. The home of the kings of the Sennacheribs, the king of Assyria, was during the biblical reign over the king Hezekiah. So then it took me to Kings 10:10. And that comes from Genesis 10:8 through 12. That shows you the whole lineage of Asher descendants, which come, that is connected to Nahum, Nehemiah. How you go. They were serving the pagan world. So then it brings me to Genesis 10:10. All right. So it brought me to Genesis 10:10. So I went up and up here. And this is what it says. The first centers of the kingdom were Babylon, Uruk, Akkad, and Calani in Shinar. From that land he went to Assyrians, where they built Nineveh, Rehoboth, is Ir, Kala, and then again it goes 12, Genesis 10:12, and Rizin, which is between Nineveh and Kala, which is a great city. Egypt was the father of the Ludites, the Ammonites, the Lehabites, the Nahum1. If I'm saying it right, probably just work with me. The Pesherites, the Philistines that came from Cataphites. And then you go, and where did all that comes down to? What happens when God says that you go into? He says you're going to come into, and that is also backed up in Bible verses, so please excuse me. It says Genesis 10, and it brings you to 15. Canaan was the father of who? And if you remember what God says, when we go in there, you're going to have kings, AI kings that have made themselves God. This backs it up with what I'm saying. And all this is the lineage of the Assyrians that come from Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So now it brings me to Canaan. Remember, a lot of people say, hey, I'm going to go to Canaan. I want to be buried there or whatnot. So 10:15, Canaan was the father of Sidon. His firstborn was the Hittites, Jebusites, Amorites, Gerasites, Hevitites, Arakites, and Senites, and Evertites. Do you remember when God said you're going to go in there, you're going to encounter your enemies, which is the Jebusites, Petzerites, and so on and so on. He said, but I would remove them, but I'm slowly removing them, but I'm going to leave some in there for a thorn, for it to have on there. It's all in there. These were people that were born from royalty blood as well, but they strayed away from God and make themselves God. It's me, me, me. And why do you think I tell you that? So you could know that even our own is our enemy. So if God pulls you away from someone, unless you're already sold, you already sealed yourself to darkness, and just know that's a decision that you're making. If you didn't know, now you know. Now you know. Isn't that amazing? The beautiful revelation. And where did I get that from as well? Because I had listed the 7 churches that I made. Remember when I did the 7 horns and what it meant? So I'm slowly working on it. I have Egypt right now, and then I worked in the Assyrians that I'm working on, doing each and one of them to get the history, where do the churches come from, and all of it starts from Genesis, brothers and sisters. So I put Assyria. It says throughout the most part of the 2nd millennium BCE, Assyrians was a dependency of Babylon, first known as Babel. That was the chief of the city of the ancient leader, who? Nimrod. Genesis 10:10. So I could back it up with the Bible verse. And also is in chapter 11 when you read it all. Then subsequently, the Mitam, the kingdom, it became Mitam kingdom. So they ended up changing the names. That's it gone on, The traditions of the Assyrians church of the east, they were descendants of Abraham's grandsons, Didon's son, Jochan's, and I'm not saying probably the name right, but progenitor of the ancient Assyrians. It's all in there. And it tells you exactly how it goes down. So they were descendants of Abraham's. Because you got to remember, it tells you in there that, yeah. And a lot of people say that he was the father of all nations. No, he wasn't. Maybe the father of all nations in darkness because he chose darkness. And it tells you in the beginning of Genesis that he decided to serve the darkness. Ended up having one with Sarah, which Sarah was of God, but then he had Hagar and ended up having children with Hagar. And then you go as you go on and on and on and on. And all this brings it back on the beginning of Noah. And it also brings it into the traditions of the Assyrians of the Church of the East, the descendants from Abraham's grandsons, Didon, the sons of Jehoshaphat. And then it goes on which I could look real quickly just to tell you that it is in there. Everything is all in there. Well, pretty much I just read to you, which is the Kenites, the Sidon of Gaza. You got Gomorrah, all of them that are our enemies. You see, as you go down, you see the sons, the elders, Ashoth, Aram. You know, they came from the sons that were born from Shem. The older brother was Japham. Shem was the ancestors of the son of Eber. And you keep going down. And then it talked about Genesis 11. But when you go into Genesis 11, I'm going to read that to you. It says the Tower of Babel. Now the whole world with one language was common speech. As people moved eastward, they found plain of Shinar. They settled there. They said to each other, come and let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. Use the brick instead of a stone. Who's the stone? The tar for a mortar. Then they said, come and let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to heaven, so that we may make our names for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth. The Lord came down to see the city and the tower of the people were building, and the Lord said, as one of the people is speaking the same language, they began to do this, that nothing they planned will ever be impossible for them. Come and let us go down, confuse the language so they do not understand each other. What was it? Because they sat there and made themselves God and said it was men that was chosen and not woman. So from the very beginning of Genesis, it was daughters, but they didn't want you to do that. So he said, hey, let's not use the stone. Let us use the other. Let's do the tar, but not the mortar. You know, let us do this. So at the end, they were planning, they were scheming, and they're saying, and it's in there. So let us say, hey, you know what? Let us do our own language. Let us say what we want them to hear, not what we really know. We know the truth. They know the truth. Abraham, everybody knows the truth. They all know. For them to say, oh, they didn't know. They knew. They didn't want you to know. They didn't want you to wake up. And why do I get on here? Everywhere you see it in there, her. This is from Shem to Abram. The account of Shem's family line. 2 years from the flood, that Shem was 100 years old. It became the father of Ephrax. After that, he became the father of Ephrax. Shem lived 500 years, and this had sons and daughters. It says Ephrax lived 35 years, became the father of Shelah. Then they became the father of Shelah was Ephrax, that lived 430 years and had other sons and daughters. They were having sons and daughters from people from the pagan world, and they pushed the daughters' covet out of there, the real rightful of the birthrights. When Shelah had lived 30 years, he became the father of Eber, and he became the father of Eber was Shea, and 404 years, and all the sons and daughters. When Eber lived 34 years, he became the father of Pegled, and then he became the father of Pegled. Eber lived 430 years and had other sons and daughters, and it goes on and on and on. I'm going to read it to you. Pegled lived for 30 years and became the father of Ru, and then he became the father of Ruth, and Pegled was 209 years old, and he had other sons and daughters. And Ru lived 32 years and became the father of Serug, and they became the fathers of Serug, and Ru lived 207 years, and the other sons and daughters. Serug lived 30 years and became the father of Nahor, and then he became the father of Nahor. Serug lived 203 years and also had sons and daughters. When Nahor lived 29 years, he became the father of Terah, and then he became the father of Terah. Nahor lived 119 years and also had sons and daughters. After Terah lived 70 years, became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. It says Abraham's family. This is the account of Terah's, the family line. Terah became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran became the father of who? Of Lot. While his father Terah was still alive, Haran died in Europe, and the Chaldeans in the land of his birth. Abram and Nahor both married. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. She was the daughter of Haran, the father of both of Milcah and Ishkah. Now Sarai was childish because she was not able to conceive. Terah took his son Abram, grandson Lot, son in Haran, and his daughter Sarai, and his wife, the son of Abram. And together they set out in Ur in the Chaldeans to go to Canaan, but they came to Haran, and he settled there. Terah lived 205 years, and he died there. And then basically that's all is said for 10, but in 11. But as you go on, it's able to tell you. It brings you more of Abraham's descendant and how it all started. And this is just way to tell you that it's in there. I said, let us talk our strange language. Let us say what we want them to hear, what they want you to believe. And this is the renewal of your mind. And that's why I continue showing up, preaching deliverance. What I got chosen to do is preaching deliverance to you and to the world and liberty. So it's not blind justice anymore, and that's how it all came down, and that's how I got the connection. Isn't that amazing? I'm going to have to do part 2 video only because I'm almost, I have like 4 minutes left, and it won't be enough for me to get 2 and 3 done, but I'll pretty much close it up. So if you need to go back and do some research, I'm still researching it. Like I told you, I just wanted to do, I did. Like right now, I'm getting ready to do Egypt. So I put, the descendants of Egypt. And then it brings you what was done before BC, what is going on. And then that's how you get to know, and you go. And then it sends you to Bible verses. That's how use your discernment, your wisdom. Sometimes it's going to say something totally off the chart, but that's not what you're looking for. Because that's what Google does. So it's one thing I needed to apologize to. Because I was like, man, they're sitting there lying. No. They give you various of what possibly could it be, but you have to use your discernment. And it doesn't give you that much negative things because, so I wanted to apologize to Google for saying that, because it also just gives you, well, what if this? But since you put Bible meaning, you always have to make sure you put Bible meaning. So it only gives you like 1 or 2, but you pass it through and then you get it. And that's how you get the truth. And then it refers you to Bible verses and you put it all together and voila. What do you have? Revelation. That you're able to do it. And it's more deep of Nineveh, and then goes further in. And it's pretty sad. The whole Bible's sad. What the daughters and the sons went through that were living in darkness. So that's why I keep saying, that we have to forgive, we have to pray, and we live the wrath of God, the vindication, and even when you hear, do not rejoice. The only rejoicing that I do is the justice for those little children, the little babies out there that are being sex trafficked. The moms, the daughters, the sons, aunties, uncles, everybody. You've seen them that they're out there in slavery. And, and they kept you out there in poverty. And it tells you also on there that they were kept poor. That's why you'll see some, because it'll tell you some are the tents of the wicked, but some are just put out there because it was stolen inheritance. It tells you all of it. It was all beautiful stolen inheritance. Let him that steal no more. And it's also by doing the renewal of your mind, So I'm still doing a little bit more study and continue preaching Revelation. So the downfall of our enemies, justice. I'll do part 2. Just give me a minute to post this one. Shalom, shalom.